Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Gallowgateshots YouTube channel and podcast. And we are back with an instant reaction to the Newcastle versus Crystal Palace game. Final whistle blew about 20 minutes ago. It was another 0-0 draw. That's the third game against Crystal Palace this season without a single goal in normal play. We're going to do a little reaction to that game. I'm Scott. I'm your host for this one. I'm joined by Iain, Kris, and Joe. Iain, I'll come to you first, mate, and we'll start off before the game. The lineup was announced and an unchanged starting 11. Caught a lot of people by surprise. Were you in that boat?
100%. Given, obviously, touch of what I'm assuming you're referring to is the Bruno inclusion. Given the picture, I know on the match reaction from Fulham, people are saying, you can roll your ankle and be okay a few days later, but his ankle literally turned like 180 degrees on one of the stills. And then we heard noise through the week that it's probably going to be weeks rather than months, which was a big relief. And then myself and Harry, obviously, when we got the picture of an unnamed figure running for a plane or whatever it was in the group chat, did with detective work, and we're very, very surprised that he was even in the squad. So obviously there was that conversation. Is he going to start? Is he just going to sort of, I think as Darryl put it, in case of emergency break glass? But for him to start was quite surprising. But again, it's probably the best 11 that he's got. So if the players are fit and available, then that's no surprise. But given the sort of what looked like the severity of his injury, I was surprised to see Bruno in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Kris, we talked about this on the preview just the other night. We weren't sure if there's going to be any players rested for this game because obviously we have a very important game in a matter of days. Was there any surprises for you that there was no resting at all and it was kind of just as you were and continue as we go?
No, I said on the match preview, Scott, that Eddie Howe will always name his strongest 11 if available in these sort of games, especially a Premier League game. He always asks the same question in his press conferences about the future of the club and if we'll predict to get top four, what we want to do in the cup, if we can win the cup. And he always says the next game is a priority. So that's why it's always going to be his strongest 11, 100%. Obviously, cup games are exception in the earlier rounds. But you know what it is? I think we've got to look at that Bruno situation, and it just clarifies what we've said all along. Bruno is an emotional guy. We saw him going off the field at half time, crying his eyes out, need consoling by Joelinton. He's fine. He's absolutely fine. He looked like there was nothing the matter with him this afternoon there. So he's fine. And long may it continue with Eddie Howe picking the strongest 11.
Yeah, I think Eddie Howe said in his interview before the game that it was only one day training that Bruno had, but it was kind of a thing. Bruno said he was fine and Eddie trusted him. So there we were. We'll move into the game. First half, Joe. Quite a few chances right at the beginning, sort of the first 20 minutes. I think Miggy had a couple. Joelinton had an absolute sitter that I think we've all discussed that he probably should have been doing a bit better with. What were your opinions of that kind of first 20 minutes? We seem to dominate but not do much.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a trend that for us this season. Plenty of teams have come against us that you know what, they're good at defending, and we just do struggle to break them down a little bit. I mean, don't get me wrong, Joelinton needs to be doing better with that first chance. It's funny when he took that shot, it got me thinking back to Norwich away last season when he absolutely pinged it into the top corner, and it just makes you think he's got that capability in him. But at the same time, it's like almost when he has too much time to think about it. It's similar with a few players. But yeah, it was frustrating. To be honest, I've got to give a lot of credit to Palace though on this one. They defended resolutely, especially with our set pieces. There was some criticism, I think it was at last game with Trippier, about his set piece delivery not being quite up to standard. But I thought this time around he was actually really good. I thought it was pinged into a lot of dangerous areas. They just seemed to have the bodies in the right places to really disrupt that flow and to stop the likes of Cher and Burn from actually getting onto that first ball. So I've really just got to give them a lot of credit. But for the few chances that we did have, we need to be doing better, because at the end of the day, second half, not jump too far ahead, but kind of goes to show you're not guaranteed any more chances in a game.
Absolutely. And Kris, it seems to be a bit of a theme of the past few games where we're getting plenty of chances, but we're not converting. I think that's now, I think it's only 1 goal scored in the last 4. Does that cause you any concern at all moving forward for the rest of the season?
Just to pick up on what Joe said, I don't think it's an issue with breaking teams down, because we're getting the chances. It's just finishing those chances. We're getting in decent areas. God knows how many times we found ourselves in the box, and God knows how many headed chances we had. It must have been at least a handful, 5-6 chances. And we're just hitting the keeper every single time. It's becoming quite frequent that we're doing that, where we'll find ourselves in really good positions where, like Joe said, you would normally open your body up and try and just put that around the keeper, and it's going straight down the centre of a goal. I think I was excited that we had Isak and St. Maximum on the bench, and the impact that they could have coming on the field. Didn't really see it. Didn't really see much changing after they came on. I thought the game dropped back a bit, but that might be in the 3 changes which Palace made just a couple of moments beforehand. But I don't think it's anything to be concerned about, because let's remember we're 3rd in the Premier League as we record this one, so there's no concerns whatsoever. But I think a lot of it comes down to Callum Wilson, because the last couple of games he's looked a little bit off his game.
Yeah, we'll touch on Callum Wilson, Ian. He just seems a little bit off the pace. It's almost like whatever illness he's had has took a little bit of the gas out of him, and he's still recovering from that. Do you think the fact he's starting is Eddie Howe just trying to get minutes into him to build that fitness up? And it's kind of a case of, if you drop him, then you've got Isak coming in, who's obviously going to probably play a bit better in terms of his fitness. But if you do drop him, you don't get him then regaining his match sharpness. But if you play him, there's the risk that we get performances like today, where he wasn't particularly bad, but he wasn't great either. He was it was just if you were scoring out of 10, probably a 5 or a 6 at most.
Yeah. I think, to be honest, it's like you say, it's a little bit like a double-edged sword. I think since the World Cup, Callum Wilson's been fairly poor in terms of his goal threat. There's been games when his link-up play has been really good, but I thought today his first touch was very poor. His holding up of the ball was quite poor. I think there was an instance in the second half. I don't know if his shirt's he's been held, but it didn't look like that to me. But he sort of takes a touch, and he's more bothered, or the ball comes to him, and he's more bothered about holding off the defender, and he's just let the ball sort of like sit in the middle of the park, and I think it possibly gets picked off. But that's that double-edged sword where if he is sort of lacking in match fitness, if he's still recovering from his illness, you need him to get the minutes. But then at the same time, if he's not performing, is Eddie Howe a little bit reluctant to start Isak, given that he's just come? Well, I know he's had sort of a long time to recover from his injury, but he's not wanting to start him for that reason. But to be honest, I thought it was probably one of Wilson's poorer displays for today.
Just to jump in, Scott, as well, I think with Wilson, we've got to remember he is a very good footballer. And we don't want to come across as if we're giving him a hard time here. But going off his own standards, and he'll probably mention in his podcast, which he'll record midweek, that he wasn't good enough and he hasn't been at that level he has, what we're used to seeing as fans of this club. I think the reason why Callum Wilson will continue to be in the starting 11 is because, like I mentioned earlier, we've got this far with that layout and that dimension that the team have at the moment. If Wilson is dropped and Isak comes in as your main man up top, that changes everything because they're completely different players. So I think that's why we'll stick with Callum Wilson, and he's been a great player for us. So I'm in agreement. I think he starts. If Callum Wilson is fit, he starts every game for us.
Yep.
Do you think that he benefits more from a number 10 rather than having the likes of Miggy come in from the byline? Because I just think about it, and I feel like he does seem to thrive a little bit when he's got maybe a player behind him. I mean, Isak is a great example of the last game with Fulham. I just wonder, what is it we're doing differently, if anything, that is causing him to have a little bit of a drought?
I'm surprised we didn't see those two together today.
Yeah,
I'm really surprised. Because they had such a decent impact against Fulham. I'm really surprised that Eddie Howe didn't try it again.
But do you think that was maybe Eddie Howe resting
looking at Tuesday.
Wilson for Tuesday.
Looking at Tuesday,
potentially.
Yeah. We'll go back to the game as a whole. There was an incident early on with one of the Palace players. Is it Gay getting a yellow card quite easily? And then he pulled down Wilson. And in my eyes, that's a second yellow card. In fact, it's a yellow card. If he hasn't got the first one, he's definitely getting a yellow card for that. Joe, do you think the referee is maybe let him have that one because the first one was so easy?
Yeah,
and if so,
I think so.
That really shouldn't be happening, should it?
Well, it's a bit of a theme going on with refereeing this season, and we see it a lot. Arsenal game is a prime example in a way where you give out an easy yellow card early doors, and at that point you've either got to stick a twist. Do you then stay consistent with the rest of the game, which really you should? If they're the levels that you're going to put down, then that's what you should be doing. Or do you? Again, just realize, okay, maybe it was a little bit of a mistake. Maybe I should just let the game flow a little bit more. It's a problem. And it's happened quite a few games this season, not just with ours, with them across the league. There needs to be more consistency. And we talk about a level of consistency between referees, but then, the referees themselves within a game need to be consistent.
Yeah.
And that's an issue. The first yellow from Gary was soft. I think so. Yeah, I think looking at it, Wilson does a little chip over, tries to get past. He does block him off. It happens very quickly. In the referee's mind, he could have argued that he couldn't really get out the way. So it was a foul, but it wasn't malicious enough to warrant a second yellow card. I think that's why he probably didn't give it in the first place. But you're right, the level of consistency just isn't there, and it makes for some frustrating watching when you're trying to work out where the player lies really with these decisions.
Just to jump in, Scott, I think the first booking, I think it's 100% a booking. I think it's just so early on in the game that the referee normally would let that go. Then I think it's Trippier not long afterwards makes the challenge, and in my mind, if their player's been booked for that challenge, Trippier needs to get booked as well. But then I think the referee thinks, hang on, I'm going to be pocketed a bit too often in the first half, But if he's sticking by his own rules by that first booking, then it should be Palace player booked, Trippier booked not long after, Bruno booked, then that's second. It's a second yellow, 100% all day long. It's that should have been 2 yellows and a send off. 100%. The referee's only got himself to blame.
Yeah, and it's like I said, it's a bit of a shame because it affects games, right? It affects results. That would have probably have put them right on the back foot, and you could also argue, Wilfried Zaha getting injured, he probably would have been subbed off, and that wouldn't have happened. So, it's all ifs and buts, and you can't really say, what if, but it does need looking at, and hopefully we can, the Premier League acknowledges that.
There's a common trend though this season.
We've seen it in
so many games, Scott.
I do want to say the free kick that we got from that foul was well moved. It was different to what we've seen before. Trippier kind of dinked it over. It was played back, and then Willock on the edge of the box. It just didn't drop for him, and he had to kind of jump and kick it and went over the bar. There was a penalty claim not long after that for a handball. For me, 100%, that's not a handball. Yes, it hits his hand, but it's not a handball. I think everyone's in agreement. And then it was kind of just the rest of the first half was just all Newcastle dominating, and you kind of felt Palace were just hanging on. They tend to concede a lot of goals in that kind of 40 to 45 minute range just before the first half. Unfortunately, we couldn't do it. But then, Iain, right at the end, Palace had a chance. Wilfried Zaha threw on goal, 1-on-1 with the keeper. Were you worried at that point that they were going to get one?
Initially, I thought, well, he's a mile off. And then they were shouting for a penalty or a foul, which, in my opinion, never.
There's not even any contact. There's no contact. He sort of
looks like he's already just going. He's already on his way down, and then he wants that contact to then claim it. Botman does well to come across, and then I think it's someone has a shot and it's deflected out. But I thought we looked. Although we've kept a clean sheet and a clean sheet away from home is a positive. I thought we looked a little bit scrappy in moments like that. I think some of the passing amongst the back four in parts of the game were a little bit sloppy, but I cannot really remember, other than that chance in the first, the corner, where he heads it over. That was their two clear-cut chances, and like you said, the rest of the half was literally just attack versus defense. We didn't make the keeper work at all, which is very, very disappointing. But I wasn't too concerned with them in the first half. But then when they made their 3 changes, I think that changed the dynamic of the game a little bit. And they looked a little bit more threatening. Obviously, I'm sure you'll touch on it in a second. Nick Pope, for all that he was a spectator for up to 60 minutes, pulls off and literally a world-class save.
Just to follow up, Scott, I think we'll have to look at that chance that Zaha has, because we'll see that quite a bit when we're dominating games, because your midfield steps up, your centre-backs step up the field. We've already got wing-backs, which are flying anyway, and we're always prone to being hit on that counter. Yeah, but somehow we're yet to concede a goal because of it. It's mad.
Yeah, and especially in the first half. It's 15 games now without a goal in the first half. August, it was Wolves.
Wolves.
I mean, to be fair, I can't remember the last time that we let players get in behind us. Really, we're normally so tight. I thought for the most part our shape in the first half was absolutely spot on. They couldn't carve out anything. The only time they really had any space was there were a couple of times where I think Botman and Cher each did a bit of a dodgy pass clearance, which they managed to intercept. They then had a bit of an attack, but really they were stifled. They were really stifled. There was not much going on.
It was one of those games, Joe, where the second ball always lands to the opposition. Yeah. Every single second ball was just landing at their feet.
Yeah, there was no one to pick it up. There was times as well in that first half where you had Cher and Botman on their kind of 40-yard line, like in the Palace half. And you're just
going for a walk.
They've got a bit of pace. We've got to be careful here. And we saw with that Zaha chance, Zaha break, shall we say. It wasn't really much of a chance.
Cher was on the edge of their box for a few times. You know, he does
it,
just doing that thing that he loves to do, doesn't he?
I know it's quite a bit in that game, though. I think we need to highlight this because Longstaff has been getting quite a bit of credit the last couple of games. I think fans are starting to realise what he actually does now. There's so many times where he was dropping back in at that right back position when Trippier was going on his adventures with Almiron. Every single time Longstaff was I'm dropping in. I know what I'm doing here. And it's similar to what Joe Linton does on the left-hand side of the field. But Longstaff, I thought, once again, Longstaff, his engine, second and on in that team. He grasps his balls from start to finish. He does.
Aye. Yeah, some good
passing. And he's starting to link up a bit on that right-hand side where, maybe if Bruno's dropping back a bit deep, he can't be there for the famous Miggy, Trippier, Bruno triangle that we've talked about so much. It's now
tried it a few times.
Tried
it a few times again today, Scott.
We did, didn't we? Yeah. I felt Trippier was getting in, but his delivery wasn't.
His delivery from open play, but I think maybe since the World Cup, I've noticed that from open play, particularly, some of his passing and his crosses has left a little bit. I feel like I'm so negative. Like it's a point away from home. There was loads of positives. Like you say, we dominated the game. We got in behind. Yeah. It's just that literally the final third that just let us down. I felt today.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's something lacking on our part or whether we just got to give credit to Palace and say, they defended resolutely for their lives. Yeah, okay, a lot of it was some last-ditch defending. Both fullbacks were having, a bit of a torrid time against our wingers, but they managed to really dig deep. I thought, is it Richards? Centre-back? Yeah, I thought he did well. And for Gay was sort of struggling at times. He was putting a hell of a shift in. So you got to.
He was struggling because he was on the yellow card.
Well, yeah, exactly. So he really had to play careful.
He had to really play careful, especially after that foul that we talked about earlier on Wilson. I think one more and you're off like 100%, and it's a straight red more than likely. Second half, Palace made 3 changes, and it seemed to get them back into the game a bit. They seemed to build a bit of confidence. They were pressing us, and it was very much the shoe on the other foot for them, which led to, and we'll come to the Pope save that Iain mentioned earlier. Kris, there's been a lot of talk about Nick Pope in the past where, he's made loads of saves and this and that, and it's different this season for him where he's not facing as many shots, but it's just a sign of how good of a goalkeeper he is when you can go 60, 70 minutes and do absolutely nothing, and then to pull off a save like that, it just speaks credit to how good he is.
It does, mate. Southgate was there watching as well, and you saw him looking at the replay, extended replay from the stands there. But I think they put a stat up earlier on in the game that said the players with the least amount of touches, it was Zaha and Nick Pope, which you would expect your keeper to have least touches. But Nick Pope's always there, no matter who we're playing, he's always there for the least amount of touches. It just shows you just how good of a goalkeeper he is. Like, coming out from the cold, doing absolutely nothing all game, then that save is a fantastic save. It's a great shot, instinctive shot. Just turns and hits it. And for Pope to be ready for that, I know it's his job at the end of the day before people say, oh, he's a goalkeeper, that's what he's supposed to do. It's an unbelievable stop. It really is. It's not straight at him either. It's to his right-hand side. So, honestly, that's for the price that we pay for Nick Pope, it's an absolute steal. An absolute steal, mate. If we were to sell Nick Pope now, in his prime, arguably, you're looking at least double to what we paid for him. At least. He's a fantastic goalkeeper. Yes, it's highlighted by how good the defence is in front of him. But for that one shot, he's just paid his value there straight away.
Well, yeah, he commanded his box really well. There's a few times he had to come out and get to the edge of the box. And you're right, for him not to do much, especially in the first half, I just can't get over that save.
Well, that was their first and I think their only shot on target.
It was indeed. And
like I say, it was around 60, 70 minutes. I don't know the exact time. But yeah, we then made a couple of changes, as we've mentioned, Isak and St. Maximum coming on, and Palace pretty much did a reaction substitution where they brought on Nathaniel Klein, who's got a bit more pace than, I can't remember the name of the guy who was
Ward. Is it Joel Ward?
Ward, is it Ward?
Ward, yeah.
You just kind of felt like that was Patrick Vieira going, okay, I know St. Maximum because I've managed him in the past. I know what he's capable of. If he comes on, you're coming off because you're going to get skinned off him. And to give credit to Nathaniel Klein, he kept St. Maximum pretty quiet. We didn't see much of him. He did okay. He had little bits, but I don't know. I don't know if it was just too little, too late in terms of the time he came on or what it was. But
I think Palace just done really well. I think
they just did well to block everything off, didn't they?
First 10 minutes, I actually forgot he was on the pitch. I'll be honest, and that's not really a slight on him, but Palace were going into the game at that point. They were going down our end, and they were causing us a lot of problems. Mateta had a pretty good shift. I thought, because when Edouard was playing in the first half, he was linking up well with the likes of Eze and that, sort of towards our final third, but he wasn't really providing too much when it came to, getting into the box and producing a lot of chances. But Mateta was that sort of focal point for them, and he really made Sharon Botman work, especially with the crosses coming in. They definitely grew into the game massively with us.
Right at the end, Ian, Jacob Murphy receives the ball at the edge of the box, drills in and plays a ball fizzing across the front of that 6-yard box, and it's just begging for someone to put their foot on it or stick the head on it or do something to it. But I think it lands, I'm right, to Joel Linton. No, it's St. Maximum who then takes the shot, and it goes. I think it deflects over the bar. Yeah. Were you getting to that point and thinking, Palace could nick a late one here, like they did against Man U midweek, to get the draw? Obviously, it would be a win for this game. Do you get worried at all nowadays when it gets to 80 minutes, it's 0-0, and it's Newcastle United?
I shouldn't, because that's what we're 13th clean sheet in the season, which is absolutely absurd. But I don't know, today, I think I was saying before, I don't know why, but I just felt a little bit nervous going into today's game. I don't usually feel nervous, and just the way the game was going, it's just typical that we've been on this amazing run, and then pretty much, like I say, other than maybe a spell of 15, 20 minutes in the second half, dominated the game. I just felt like we were going to get picked off this, but I just don't think it felt for us right today. So there'd be instances where we'd get in great positions, but maybe the ball in wasn't quite right, or would put a perfect ball in, but there wasn't the players there to finish it. And it's just frustrating as it is, because like I say, we dominated the game, we got in behind, we just couldn't finish today. I thought at first, the sort of just touching on that chance that you on about, the St. Maximin one, I thought he's got to be doing a lot better. But then when you see the replay, the ball literally fizzes off. And I think Joe Linton's just in front of him, which might have put him off. So his touch isn't the greatest. But it's fair play.
Well, what happened? Yeah, I think it was Isak, wasn't it? Because
Isak's running.
The ball comes in. Isak is as the ball's coming in, Isak basically makes a last-ditch run, tries to get the touch on it near post, and then it deflects. And by the time it hits St. Maximin, that's when it bounces off him, and he doesn't know anything about it at that point. Defender's coming in, and he blazes it over. But I mean, it was one of those.
I think it deflects, doesn't it? Because we got a corner from it. One of many corners in that game. I lost count. If you had a bet on 8 or more corners, you probably had that one come in. Kris, one last thing before we wrap this up. Obviously, we talk about we've been on such a good run. We're on such a good run, right? We're third in the league. We're on 39 points. We're a point away from safety, if you want to look at it that way. The one downside you could say to that is we've had 9 draws this season, with a top number of draws in the Premier League this season, but obviously we're also the least number of defeats as well, so it kind of balances itself out. Are the draws a worry? Like, do you think, if we can next season build on this and turn those draws into wins, are we laughing?
That's what I have to remember. We are so early in this project. It's a year and a half since the takeover. We're so early in it. And to be where we are right now, nobody expected that. Nobody anticipated we'd be doing this well. Yes, we're drawing games. Who cares? We're not losing them. That's the main thing at the end of the day. And it's a point away from all. I think some of the things that we've said on there might come across a bit negative, but that's because it feels more like drop points, this one, because we had the chances there. It's not like we were the lesser side, because we dominated that most of it. And we didn't have a bad day at the office, far from it. We just couldn't finish for chances. I don't think we can look at one player and go, oh, you absolutely stinking this game, because it's not the case. It's going to happen. We're going to struggle against certain sides. And like Joe said early on, you've got to give credit to Palace, because Palace played well today. And it was just 2 teams that were cancelling each other out, both sides of the field. But it's not worrying. Far from it. Look, we're third, like I said, we're third in the Premier League. Third.
It was very weird to see the Palace fans right at the end celebrating the fact that they're getting a 0-0 draw against Newcastle United. I do want to pick up. There's a bloke in there with a megaphone who can get in the bin as well. I don't agree with that.
Can I just quickly say one?
But whatever.
Quick point though is that we might be drawing a few games, but if you think a year or 2 ago, think of those draws. We were the team on the opposite side.
We'd be celebrating the draw.
Well, exactly. We were the ones who were digging in deep, barely creating any chances, and having hope that we'd nick it on the counter attack. Yeah, okay, we might be struggling to break a few teams down, but I mean, the performances are there, and we're only going to get better, really. So we can't complain too much. I think it's okay to be a little bit critical, as long as we take it all in context of where we are, as Kris has rightly alluded to. So, okay, it's a point away from home. We'll go on.
I think what we've got to be hopeful of, that we've got that performance out rather than going into Tuesday's game against Southampton. That we'll learn from the errors that we've made in this one and not being able to finish for dinners. Let's get this one out of the way. Let's go into Tuesday on the back of a point away from home. I know I've said it a couple of times in this one, but it's a decent point. Looking back over previous seasons, and like Joe just mentioned when we were just speaking there, that a couple of seasons ago, a handful of seasons ago, we would lose that game. We would dominate the game, then lose it. We're not doing that. We don't even concede goals, man. That's how good we are at the moment. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I think now we'll just put that one behind it. Wasn't a bad performance. It's a decent point away from home. Huge game on Tuesday night. Yeah,
and I think with us looking forward to that game on Tuesday night is a good point to wrap this one up. Thanks, everybody, for joining me. Thanks, Kris. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Iain. If you like this sort of content, we do a whole host of videos just like this all throughout the week here on the Gallowgateshots YouTube channel. If you want to get all these videos in your YouTube feed, scroll down from this video, hit the little subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button if you've liked it, hit the thumbs down if you haven't. They both help us massively. And if you want to be notified when new videos go live, hit the little bell icon and you'll be notified on your device of choice when we release a new video. if you want to go one step further, we have a membership program. It's $2.99 a month. That gets you early access to some of the pre-recorded videos, as well as access to the Telegram group. But this is it for this video. It ended 0-0, another draw on the cards, but we go into Tuesday's game full of confidence. There will be a match preview coming up. We'll probably record that one tomorrow, I would have thought, being Sunday.
There might actually be a live watch along as well on Tuesday night with all the smiling faces, lads.
There we go. So you cannot miss that. Is that going to be instead of a Monday night?
Oh, I think we might be doing back-to-back, mate.
Back-to-back lives.
Spoiling
that's worth $2.99 alone. How we, man? Come on, get yourself subscribed. Anyways, lots to look forward to in the coming weeks. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Ta-ra.